Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Beyond the Ordinary Show. And today we're speaking with the amazing Elizabeth Wood, talking about natural law versus matrix law. And if you've been on with Elizabeth, you know we're going to go in deep and wide and tapping into just through the lens that Elizabeth holds that gives us a platform on which to see better, in which to have hope and understanding of what's progressing and really being able to anchor in this place where we can be with the expansion that's happening to us and for us instead of having to be in this resistance or fight or confusion with it. So there'll be a lot of clarity, a lot of activation that'll happen in conversation, and so much wisdom. You will be intrigued if you haven't listened to Elizabeth before. There's never been let me rephrase that. Every conversation with Elizabeth always takes me to a whole nother level. And it's with an introduction, Elizabeth, that I want to welcome you to today's show.
Thank you. The last time we saw each other was on 8/8. So
we pick these amazing auspicious portal dates, don't we, to get together?
Yeah.
I was going to go through bio, but I'd really love it if you could share part of your awareness of how it is that you're facilitating consciousness for the people that you work with.
Thank you. Well, lately, I've been trying to be in this beautiful state of humility and jokingly have been telling everyone I'm a psychic farmer. So, because I have a farm and I'm psychic, but right now, especially, it's this beautiful bridging of the galactic and the earthly. And that to me is my edge in consciousness, and that's what I care about most, is consciousness above all things. And so I really have this deep destiny, this desire to see the edge of where humanity is in evolution and where we can be going in consciousness, and giving people that glimpse over that edge. And that's what I care about the most right now.
I really appreciate that. And what you do with that edge is really, it's a unifying force, because as you speak about concepts and what's occurring in a system, you're not creating separation. You're not making one wrong and one right for the sake of one being right or wrong. You're really bringing about an understanding of a natural progression that's taken place and how we're relating to it. And so as we get into the conversation about natural law versus matrix law, you would think that that would create a lot of rift. This one's wrong and this one's right. That one's out to get this one's only here to serve us. And so just with that slight introduction of today's conversation, what is the difference between natural law, or how would you describe natural law and how would you describe matrix law before we even get into the differences?
Yes, excellent. Exactly. You know, both of these beautiful realms of law have afforded us incredible learning. And so we're at the end of a huge experiment in consciousness. It's one of the greatest that was ever made, really. And that has been about 800,000 years of Homo sapiens. And what we've accomplished in consciousness is immense under the pressure we've been under. And the pressure has built over many eons, but that pressure is what matrix law is. And it's these very specific fields of information that keep us in a certain kind of mindset, in a survival mindset, especially, so that you won't keep seeking out the most important answer to the most important question, which is, who are you? And so if you're worried about being ill or dying, if you're worried about money, if you're worried about making ends meet and the relationships that you have and the trauma you're dealing with and the very deep 3D, focusing on 3D, that is actually going to keep you in a state where you're more easily controlled. And so we use this term matrix as this classic idea of a matrices of control, and it being fully basically a global issue. But I think that at this point, it's very clear that all of that is falling apart. It has been for a really long time. And we've all got one eye on that basically dissolving pressure that we've been under. And then meanwhile, we're also needing to go through all the dogma and all the structure and try to clarify our lineages. And this is where we come into the natural law piece, because we're being asked to bring all the light from all the different lineages out of the Kali Yuga, the time of darkness. As we're moving through Dwapara Yuga, we're peeking over. Today was a big day. We had a huge peak at the galactic center today. Doesn't matter if you had clouds over you or not. The galactic center was the most powerful it has been in a very long time today, because the electromagnetic field was even lower than it already has been. And so that center is giving us this very powerful moment where we get to say, how did we even begin this experiment? Who are we? Who am I? And we wouldn't be so curious about it. And we wouldn't have incarnated so much of us, John, here right now at the end of this huge 800,000 year cycle, if we didn't know that the old ways need to be recapitulated. So neither of these things are an issue or wrong. This is part of huge cycles that are natural. And we're here now as the transition team to a new way of being. And we need to watch that matrix fall right now. I want people to be very attentive to it and not be resentful, because you would not be capable of getting any of these ideas if you did not have that kind of suffering. Now you know what freedom is, and at least what it's not. So that's very important. So I think it's valuable to see both of these and the way that we've been functioning in both, and be able to transition from this liminal space, a space between spaces, where the matrix is falling, but the new is also being built.
As the new is being built, what do you see in reference to the capitulation? Because you mentioned, a dense emotion going forward, having resentment for the old and all that. And from my experience, the energetic, the vibrational tone that emotions like resentment and anger and rage, they don't meet with the natural order necessarily in the way that we might want to identify with the old matrix law. Because from what I see in that natural law, we do manifest almost instantly our thoughts, our way of being, that place of being present has a cause and an effect. And so how is that adjusting with, again, these charged emotions that are crumbling from their foundational wheel? And how do we transition into natural law if we're still processing so much of that as a society?
Yeah, it's amazing that 75% of the matrix dissolving is internal. It's inside of you.
Mhm.
And 75% of dealing with shadow or darkness, or what we might call the demonic, is also 75% of it, at least, is all inside you. It's internal. So you have to now use some very powerful mystical skills to get into a state of working with natural law. And you need to do something called tracking. You got to track your thoughts and your feelings and be very conscious of how your subconscious is revealing images in your mind. The imaging of the mind of the human being is incredibly powerful. And very, very soon, we're going to be linked up to a larger collective that we haven't been linked to in a very long time. Because we are part of our global collective of human beings on Earth right now. We can feel that. That actually came online around 2009. But soon, in June, we're going to be connected to the Galactic Collective. And we need to be prepared for that, because that means a lot more memory. And it's important to be very attentive to those emotional energies and recognize them and process them. I like to actually use another mystical skill called objectifying. And so I'm kind of reclaiming that word, objectifying, but I'll take my trauma or my emotion or my memory, and I'll actually put it into an object in front of me in the fourth dimension. And I'll be able to interact with it more outside the body so that I can perceive it in different ways and not necessarily hold it inside me anymore. I think that it's important for us to examine and be very conscious of what the images and emotions are in our mind. But of course, your audience is very wise. They've been hanging out in this concept field for a long time. I think that we all do understand that things like resentment or shame or guilt are frequency. And that is very key to this, because that means that they've been very valuable. All possible emotions and frequencies are full of information, and they're very, very valuable. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist. And so I sort of like to see it as a universal library of all of these things. And we get to check out these books, and so have our ancestors. But at the end of a huge experiment like this, now it's not going to behoove you to continue to try to detail out every single little emotion. It's time to graduate to genetic cleanup and say, all right, I get it. I understand exactly what grief feels like. I have brought in a certain amount of that because of my genetic imprint out into the world. And so as we transition from matrix law to natural law, you need to be very attentive to the fact that your genetic traumas are actually going to now become far more magnified in this powerful light. And that's going to show up in your life. It's been so real on my end for that to go in and be super aware of all the genetic stuff playing itself out in front of me, because my light, my soul's light from the first dimension, is moving through all of that, shining this Batman sign energy out into the world to bring forth the things I've created. I've drawn every single thing in through that. And so this shift now, what I've just pointed out, we've been stuck in 3D. We've all started with 3D. We've been taught to do that, even in the new age. Everyone's been obsessed with 3D, moving from 3D to 5D or wherever. And the thing is I've always argued all these years, I've been pretty consistent. The first dimension is the most important. It is the I am presence. It's who you are. And if you can reassemble your consciousness from that light, everything changes. And now you're being held in this huge opportunity, this new place in space, where we get to do all of this in record time, to be able to clean up your genetic lineage. Doing it now is the perfect time. It's amazing to me that people are always wondering, well, I've done all this work and I feel like I'm still stuck. And I wish that there was just going to be like a better time on earth where all this would clear. And you're in it now. It's the dimensions are wide open. So that's part of a transition. There's many steps, I believe. that we have to take to move from matrix law to this grander working of reality that is more natural and more appropriate. But when you are going to be your true self, everything's going to change to arrange itself to support that. You, you got to be ready for what you wish for.
Yeah, and how wonderful and how terrifying for parts of us as well. And there's also an innate part of us that knows, we know that this is coming. We know that this is part of our evolution, individually and collective. We know that certain things were going to crumble so we can build new foundations. We know that there's a big part of us that wants to hold on to comfort and safety because, dang, we've done so much work already. We've experienced so much. Can we just catch a break? Just let me breathe for a little bit. But then we know that we have to connect in new ways. It's like we somehow intrinsically know these things in that natural law. But man, that matrix law has become so familiar that I don't know if I want to re-identify some of the things as I've known them so that I can create the new. And so it's an interesting wave that's going back and forth as it's progressing and gaining momentum in that natural order. And in that, one of the things that you do well, you bring in so many different practices and tools to really bring it's like you're like an encyclopedia for that. It's absolutely amazing, truly. But one of the things that are really foundational is really how your redefinition and getting to the truth and the essence of particular frameworks that we live by. And there's certain terms that come up a lot. I want to be more abundant. So let's talk about abundance first and how we're redefining that, or how that has to be redefined.
I love the field of
Yeah.
abundance
Mhm.
because it's so precious and nourishing and available. It's natural.
Mm.
And that's what's so cool about natural law. Um, my my love for abundance is very exclusive, and as you know, John, does not include the word manifesting. And I've always looked very carefully at etymology and the way that words stem from deeper meaning that is actually very deeply genetic. And that word is very powerful because it actually encourages you basically putting your ideas of what you want out into the world. And we might call that a projection or a lens or a template. And we put that out in the world and we work at it. Actually, in the manifesting concept, we work quite hard with it. But when you actually tap into natural law, that's not at all how natural law works. Putting any sorts of fears and desires out into the world is not how natural law works. Because natural law is based in the divine rights and the divine will and divine order and divine timing. And these are beyond your personal fears and desires. And so I like to simplify it a bit here. Think of it as your I am presence is one of the notes on a piano. And the whole source field is the whole piano. And when you are wanting to create in the world, we often, of course, look very carefully at our needs, our desires, our fears, our hopes, our dreams, and all these things. And they're all very highly influenced by our traumas, our genetics. They're highly influenced by our attachments and expectations, our cultural conditioning. And those ideas end up becoming rather distorted and or work with the rest of the people around us who are also trying to be comfortable in the matrix. So the idea here is, if you can go ahead and step outside of that whole idea that anything that you want, need, fear, desire, etc., is what you're supposed to put out into the world, and instead say, I need to recognize that the source field itself is available to me at all times, because it's my divine right to be connected to the will of the divine, the will of source. And so that is far more creative than myself, because of course the universe being this incredible symphony, I'm just a single note. Nonetheless, the midnight sonata with one note removed is no longer the midnight sonata. So don't think that your note is not important. But it's also not the whole song. And if you could really ask the song, if you could ask the whole piano, if you could ask the whole spectrum of consciousness instead of just the singular I am, then you're going to be able to receive more, because it's far more creative and it's more miraculous. So we can't actually, with what we know, this is the secret to good psychic seeing, by the way. You cannot see with what you know. If you run your seeing through what you know, then you're going to miss most of 99.9% of the universe. And so I encourage you to have to imagine this idea that you're actually free of your fears, desires, conditioning, all of that. That's actually a very powerful structure that you've learned a lot from, that you created it. You're very clever, so that you could function in the matrix. Very smart to be able to get through to this point. But now there's this whole other way of working, where we say, my attachments to outcomes and my expectations around stuff, my judgments are very limited in scope. It's just all really distorted, and who knows what kind of subconscious stuff it's connected to. The source field is far more gracious and abundant than I could have ever even imagined. And so when I say, let the divine will be done, let divine order, let the divine work, and the divine pay, let the divine will be done, and I relinquish all of my fears, desires, wants, the things that worked in the matrix to get a little bit. But when you relinquish it all, when you're free, when you're in non-resistance, that's real freedom. And then things begin to happen that are far more multidimensional, far more strange and beautiful, far more miraculous, far more abundant. And then you start to see the real laws, that if you want to be able to receive more, you must make room for it, because the divine will actually works in physics. And if you're generous without expectation, in some way, shape, or form, even a compliment, kindness, radical kindness without reason, then that activates physics. And that is spiritual divine law. That is natural law. And there's beautiful miracles that can happen in that state. So I'm trying to illustrate and offer a feeling where you don't necessarily need to sit around and worry anymore, because that's actually a huge waste of time and impression on your powerful subconscious. And that subconscious is unbridled power without direction. And when you're sitting there imagining your limited whatevers in your life, then you're actually putting images into your subconscious power and allowing your I am presence to be fully distorted into the world. Like a big Batman sign that's asking for trouble versus help. So That's the idea. Does that make sense and feel true?
It does make sense. And I love that you took us into the feeling of it, the alchemy that arises where we're in that space of being in the experience, allowing ourselves to receive it, and what that does to reduce that resistance, what that does to put us at peace so that I'm not resistant, but we're still tight like this. But we can notice it in our breath when we're in the fluidity of that truth. And that's what it is. It's a fluidity of truth rather than a control mechanism trying to survive these myths that we've created that are no longer pertinent to our story. Right? It's relinquishing into it, relaxing, feeling what letting go of resistance feels like, even if it's a sip at a time. Because we can say let go of resistance and some, but I don't know, I'm in resistance, or I've been trying all my life to let go of resistance. What the freak are you talking about?
Yeah.
But again,
It's tricky.
it's like these roads, the highways didn't get built all at once. They're a step at a time. But before you know it, you're zooming down those highways. And it's patience and grace that leads us there. And we have so much, we're so supported, Elizabeth. I'd love it if you talk a little bit, and I know that we want to get into more, and we'll probably get into some Q&A, but I'd love it if you can talk about your awareness of the support that we're receiving from this realm and other realms perhaps as well, because we don't talk about that a lot.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's very important for people to understand now that the Galactic Collective is at your service. And that we're here to remember. That's why we have that urge to keep going. And we feel destiny. And destiny is very powerful. Destiny is the currents of consciousness. And this is a very peak point in the shifting from one species to another. So here we are at this interesting edge where we've now left the Kali Yuga fully. We're in the Dwarpa. We are peeking up over the galactic edge. And our amazing solar system is out on the edge of our galaxy. So our cycles actually are quite a lot longer than other human cycles in our galaxy. And our 12,000 year cycle is a huge electromagnetic event, and we're in the middle of it. And so our planet's electromagnetic field is going through an excursion. It's disappearing. It's about 35% gone so far, moving very quickly, exponentially to zero. And that means that we get access to new qualities of light. Don't let people make you afraid about anything like this. When you start to hear about this more, and people say, oh, more radiation, and that's bad. No, it's about evolution, and light causes more change very quickly. Furthermore, as we go through this, the sun is going to continue to change a lot of what we experience. This is normal, and it happens every 12,000 years. And yes, we're here for a big shift. There's lots of amazing things that may happen, including a pole shift. But what's so special about this time is that many other factors are coming into play. And one of them is that your consciousness is here for a very big influx of galactic light right now. And if you're willing to let this light reveal everything that you need to shift and to dissolve, then you're going to remember more. Furthermore, we have an incredible family of humans in this galaxy. We have incredible beings in many dimensions who really help us very much. And there are many, many very amazing adversaries whose histories are very important and very sad sometimes. But these are not necessarily meant to remain as our adversaries, because you're heading towards a huge event that all of us have been waiting for. Some of you have incarnate from even as stars and planets, and others have been fairies and elementals, and everybody who has been involved in the powerful creation of Gaia is here. There are more souls incarnate now than all 66 12,000 year cycles combined. And so we're here for this big leap. And this leap actually denotes something so powerful. It denotes a change into one of the most important forms of human that we could ever have hoped for. And our explosive consciousness. Some people might have actually seen some of the latest remote views from some very interesting remote viewing groups out there about, oftentimes they'll see this huge explosion in consciousness, and they wrote about it in like the CIA back in the day too, and like everyone's like afraid that it's like the end of the world or something, and they can't see past it. But John, they missed it. It's not the end of the world. It's literally the change of a species. It's us. We're the
The world
explosion.
as we knew it,
Yeah,
yes.
we're the explosion.
Mhm.
It's us. And how could you see past that shift if you're Homo sapien and you're
You can't-
becoming
you
Homo
don't
luminous?
you don't have you don't have context.
Yeah, there's no context. So that, and the coming online of the memory, the coming online of Indra's net, the second dimension, which is the telepathic and psychic network that we're all on, that we can all feel, that we're always connected on. And that's going to become very, very important and apparent as
Mhm.
many changes occur. But the support, that's the incredible piece, is also coming from inside the planet. We
Mhm.
have we have support from inside too, and Gaia herself is so available right now.
Mhm.
It's so available if you're willing to hear her. And as you remember more, you remember your own lifetimes, you remember your own star families, and even beyond this galaxy, my friends. Of course, we're from the beginning of time. All of these memories are available to you. So this is part of that shift, is for us to fully remember again. And hey, listen, remembering's not all like perfect and stuff, guys. It's rough. It's amazing and powerful and very difficult too. And
Mhm.
so it takes an act of humble bravery to remember. But
Mhm.
that's what you're here for. It's what we're driven to. So I see all these myriad forms of support, incredible star family becoming more available, and especially by June, having our Galactic Collective online means we're all going to have a lot more access to our families and what they've been through and how they've become free too, and what they've gone through in their past. And it's going to look really familiar.
One of the things that I see playing out, we'll call it in the matrix timeline, or the matrix law, is, for me, it's interesting because I see so many good things happening. I see shifts, and yeah, it's like I've got to go through my personal reconciliation of energies and thoughts and memories that are coming up to rise with me as I step forward into that natural law, to being in that expansion, into what's available, into this place that we didn't know how we were going to grow into it, but we knew that we were. It feels very benevolent. It feels very, it's beyond hope. It's like, of course we're heading there. And so there's, even as density or memories or these other things may be flowing through me, there's a lot of optimism. It's not even optimism, just of course that's where it's going to. But I hear a lot of people in my circles, very close to me, that really get focused on the despair. Oh my God, the world is in such a horrible place. So, oh my God, the wars, what's happening with humanity and this other thing. And there's like a getting lost in this context of that the world is such a horrible place and it's worse than it's ever been, and and I find that's just part of what's tearing apart in that matrix law that isn't sustainable anymore. But how can that shift? What's your perspective about what I'm talking about? And how can we bring it into a place where, again, we're swimming with the tide and not against it?
Yeah, so two things. First, if everyone could zoom out with me a lot and, and look at the earth, really look at what's happened with the earth and the very special DNA that we have access to. This is very unique DNA. Part of why you don't remember is because this is original DNA. It doesn't have galactic memory in it. You need to fully embody your true body with your whole soul to have your memory back. And so healing trauma is number one. But if you're really willing to zoom out and look at the full galactic picture, it's all going to make a lot more sense after this solstice for sure. But you need to understand that the earth is a keystone. The earth is a keystone in a larger context of what we would probably call war. However, this war, we've learned a lot. We have learned the most important lesson, and it's that you can't get rid of adversaries. It's not how it works. And that darkness and evil and all of these things are consciousness under pressure. And what people are feeling is the pressure of Gaia being a keystone and you and your consciousness being a keystone. My friends, if you want to see the world change, all that work is going to be inside of you. If you want to see the ends of these wars, you must clarify what you're perceiving on the inside and be able to start to see from your true I am presence. If you can start to see from that, your awareness ends the wars. Your awareness is divine. And that ends the darkness, it ends the pressure because of awareness. Awareness itself literally releases all this dense consciousness. And from a very interesting dimension, the 11th dimension of consciousness, I teach about 12 dimensions. And it's all one big circle. It all works together, big open floor plan. But from the 11th dimension, this big zoomed out place where we get to see how the universe really works, basically light gets put under pressure, and then it looks dense or dark, and then it gets released. And it's a big breathing cycle. The universe breathes. It breathes light and density, and then back again. This is perfect. What's happening on Earth is part of that density being released. We're going through that release as we literally, as a solar system, begin to have more galactic light from the center beaming at our planet and our solar system. It's literal, it's physics. We are now coming out from being under pressure. As the matrix falls apart, it looks like war. It looks like consciousness under pressure and that it's not getting any better, that it's worse actually. That's an illusion. It's simply actually releasing, it's allowing itself to be fully unfolding. There's a completion going on. And that completion is key. It has to happen. And that's why we have things like prophecy. It's why we have people who are always looking for the future. And it's why we have these ideas like destiny. But this is normal. These are the way these cycles work. And then all of that release and all of that ancient history releases, the keystone of Earth is reclaimed by the full light, which is you. And if you want it, you need to work on you. It's your pure awareness without distortion, without a bunch of judgment and trauma. and expectations and resistance and fears and desires, all that stuff. That's not actually your awareness. And if it's really purified, then it starts to shift reality. And what will change first is your own life. My life's completely changed. I was telling John about it earlier. I was like, well, in a nutshell, everything is completely different. So that's key, because it all does actually have to fall apart in order for it to fall back into divine order.
Hmm.
And then the divine order, it puts itself out. So for example, a lot of people are finding their relationships ending. A lot of times it might be volatile, but it can also be very amicable. And these relationships ending, and then very quickly and suddenly there seems to be the most perfect, amazing, divine person and match that shows up. And it's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Because you're more you. And so the divine order has to play out. But then this is actually happening simultaneously in collective consciousness, because now it's time for masculine, feminine to work together again, and work in perfect harmony with the right gears and the right spots with your counterpart, with your proper counterpart. So there's all these things going on as well. And it's very, very nourishing if you're willing to allow it to occur and go with these currents, like John is saying, surfing consciousness right now. These years have gone by and we've watched those waves get more and more tight. And now we're in the whirlpool heading towards 0 point.
Yeah, I want to get into some Q&A in just a little bit. We're going to go over the special offer because to go deeper in this with you, it's profound. It's preparing us also for these influxes, these pulsating waves that y'all they've already begun, but we're going to feel, we're going to be more aware, and then the experience of it and the way Elizabeth guides through this is really powerful and useful and uplifting. Before we get into any of those, though, the burning question for you, as we're letting go of resistance, as we're becoming more aware, and again, we'll say working through that warring inside of us, like really being with that consciousness, there's something that happens in natural law also that becomes very powerful. And I don't think we talk about it enough, because sometimes it seems like we're talking about boundaries or setting up big walls or like trying to keep something out. And that for me is a war. But there's something extremely benevolent about this energy and the awareness of discernment. And I'd love it if you just give us a sprinkle of that, because it's so empowering when it's held in vibrational accord with what we're expanding into. It sets the tone for natural order to organically proliferate and to keep building. But when it's brought in from a lower octave, it can be very destructive and limiting in what we allow ourselves to experience.
Yeah, I especially appreciate the fact that you brought up the idea of walls too, because if you're in that tracking, in that examination of your consciousness, and if you're relentless at this and make it a lifestyle, then you'll notice that when you want to put the wall up, there's also an expectation of something coming to fight against it, right? And I love to tell people a little bit, because I do live on a farm, that I had this orchard and I put my sheep pretty much left the orchard alone, but I wasn't sure if they would actually do that, so I put a fence around it, and then they definitely went for the orchard, because it was just ingrained energetically, even in a sheep, that there's like this concept of, well, there's a wall, so that must be really juicy, whatever's on the other side of that wall. And so imagine what the adversaries or whomever else out in the world that we end up being afraid of come, they're looking for this stuff. They're looking for the walls, they're looking for the shields, they're looking for all that. And it's because that is just a huge energetic signal out there that there's something good on the other side of that they want. So here's this interesting idea that if you follow the thread of what made you want to put that wall up in the first place, what are you going to find? That's the subconscious stuff. And when you dig in, you're going to find all those traumatized versions of yourself. And, you know, even if that was 2 days ago, that is an imprint that creates a sort of a stained glass window, as you might imagine it. And that stained glass window, again, you're running your I am presence through it. And because it's so close to you, it's very hard for us to see our own poster when your nose is right up against it. It's easier actually for us to see one another. It's actually part of natural law that we can't see ourselves that great. And that means we need to work together, that we need one another. It creates a deeper unity of service. And then that service shifts stuff for sure. But if you want to make sure to do what John is alluding to and make sure that these sort of images that are from the subconscious being put out in the world are not creating more issues, and that you need to follow that thread and find an energetic emotion of it and value it. And here's the most important way to look at it. As I said before, every emotion is like a book. It's a book in a library. When something happens in front of you, it is because either you or your ancestors checked out a certain book, checked out a certain energetic, received from certain energies, including good ones, because our ancestors didn't just leave a bunch of trash bags. They left a lot of antiques and treasures too. And understand that that's just the beginning. Once you start to value all of these different frequencies in equanimity and recognize that they are all very useful in consciousness, otherwise they would not exist, this gives you a chance to recognize that natural law is not necessarily based out of love, my friends. Love is actually part of the perks of natural law. But the point of natural law is novelty. And that is why there are things like negative emotions at all or traumas at all. And you, as a being of powerful consciousness, a very singular, energetic, a quality of light, you have chose very specific sets of lenses, very specific stained glass window to help you to actually perceive the truth. And I've talked to John about this before, where I was actually able to perceive my own life in a different way, that I had checked this book out called Elizabeth. And that this book was very powerful. I'd worked really hard for this particular life. Because then, as you are willing to start to treasure all of these different energies, then you're not building walls against anything anymore. You're not creating any more fear or desire dynamics anymore. Then the field of natural law begins to listen to your desire from the soul. It's a very singular desire of service. It's the sense of being in the flow of things, my friends. It's that deep sense when you're doing something you really love, that you're very, very good at, that you treasure the most. And it can be very simple, beautiful things that put you in that open state. But this is where all of the orchestration of natural law begins to take hold in our reality. And then all of the clear dynamics of, if I hang on to this attachment, if I'm really expecting this thing, then it's going to occur. You're not crazy anymore. It's real. It's valid. It actually happens in physics. You'll see echoes. in your life around you, proving to you that these things are real, that your ideas about actually being a soul and remembering are real. And then the coolest part happens. Then you get all your superpowers back because you have siddhas. You are a being of light, capable of great, great superpowers. And some of them are really unique and beautiful and simple and wonderful. And so that's when all the magic happens. And walls, why would you want to build walls or deal with any sort of dark stuff at all in your life? You're going to be the vortex. It's the end of the fallacy, John, of that we need to be in the world and not of it.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
it's over.
We get to finally touch the ground.
We
Mhm.
have to be in the world, of the world, shining in the world. Shining, shining. And if you're putting walls up, please expect armies.
Mhm.
That's how the physics works.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a beautiful quote, and y'all, we need to get into special offer because I want to get into Q&A as well with y'all because I know some powerful questions coming in. But the quote is, the king who fears war invites it to his doorstep.
Love it. Yeah.
It's really that simple. It's like if we're preparing or we're constantly in fear. Discernment is one thing. Running it through fear, the expectation that you're going to be attacked, all these other things. It's again, that's that matrix law and we're shifting. And Elizabeth's here to so beautifully guide what's available to you, and not only the reconciliation of the past, but also the invitation of what is actually occurring now, has been occurring. Actually, we could even call that the past, but how we become more intimate in a relationship with it so you can really navigate in a powerful co-creation with this beautiful, extraordinary expansion that's happening for all of us, including you. So y'all, the link for the special offer, it's underneath the video where you're watching. If you don't find it there, look in the chat box. April has popped it into the chat box as well, so you can have access to the special offer. And you can always access the special offer in case you're not on the website or listening somewhere else. Just open up a browser when you have the opportunity and go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/marketplace, and you'll find Elizabeth's picture on there, the special offer button, and you'll be able to open it from there as well. Elizabeth, why'd you put this package together? And give us more details about it, please.
Thank you. So I've really been watching human beings very closely these days, and my own self, of course. I'm always hanging out in the same energetics as everyone else. And I realized that it's been a long time since I've actually done a retreat, an online retreat, where I can just allow the galactic knowledge to come through and to help us reconnect to natural law and Gaia's knowledge. And I like to be in a flow state where I'm teaching. It's basically where my soul gets to express itself the best. But in the sense of also a healing and a friendship and a caring place, I want to be able to help people and hold them in a space for a day to give them a boost right before this very cool eclipse that's happening on April 8th. And so on April 6th, I'm going to do this very special retreat for this package where we're going to walk through natural law. We're going to walk through the divine rights that you have as a being of divinity. And my intention is to take you on like imagine a ferry boat out into, it could be like literally a ferry boat or a ferry, a big boat where we're all going together, and we can be actually going to see this viewpoint, this vantage point, and perceive the divine law, the natural law that you're part of, and actually feel it in your body. And if you're willing to be able to just relax, show up in receiving, and come with me in that very gentle space with a cup of tea, and really, really receive, my friend, I think that this healing retreat is going to give us a chance to very gently get some of those hooks from the matrix out of your subconscious. If you allow me, I enjoy taking you on a very deep, dimensional, mystical journey where I can show you these things psychically and from many, many dimensions all at once, so that you can allow that to open up into your physical being. And that's something that is very precious, because then I can speak soul to you, and we can get really clear on who we really are in our sovereignty, and be able to then discern from that soul level place from here on out, and watch your life change a lot. So that when June solstice comes in the summertime, you'll be able to really enjoy the immense celebration of becoming part of the galactic collective again. That's going to be inevitably amazing. Just as last December and last June solstice were also immense. It's just going to keep getting better. So I want to help people prepare for that too, and receive in that nourishment. So that's the first item on the list, is a day-long retreat together where you can be really in receiving, and I can take you on this journey in many dimensions and open you up into your true, actual divine self. And you're going to be able to absorb all these remembrances of your divine virtues, your divine rights, your divine dimensions that you're part of, and who you really are. It's very precious time for us, I think. And then the package that the rest of it also is very supportive. And I wanted to give you the best of the best of my workshops that I've done over the years. The Heal Yourself and Heal the World self-guided workshop with my friend Meg Archambault is very powerful. There's many, many tens of hours. I think there's something like 20 plus hours
20
of
hours of video and audio teachings. Yeah.
yes. And this is all about healing, my friends. If you want the simplest, most effective, if I'm all about efficiency, I'm a scientist. I care about efficiency. If you want efficient healing and tools that you don't have to think too hard about, this is the best self-guided workshop you could want. We actually did it as a week-long online retreat before, and this is what it turned into, a beautiful workshop and interactive ebook. And then there's the Fields of Limitation and Limitlessness workshop. These 5 fields are big programs. One of them is the fear of death, for example, or this whole crazy, interesting idea about money being somehow the way we should value things. These are fields that are part of the matrix, and these are the 5 biggest programs. And then when you're free of them, how's it going to feel? What's the opposite of the fear of death exactly? And how can you be more sovereign from there? So that's going to really nourish you to take a very good and gentle step out of the matrix from there. And then we need to do what John was talking about and discern properly.
Yeah.
That's where the body oracle technique comes in. And honestly, this is one of my favorite workshops that I've ever done in my whole life. It's one of my masterworks.
Mm.
It's to help you, because I realized, hey, that's great that I'm psychic. It's great. I love helping people to see, but over all these decades of doing psychic seeing, the most important thing that you could ever receive from me is the empowerment to see for yourself. And I want to teach you how to fish. I want you to be able to know what the truth is. And the body oracle technique gets you deep into your body, which is your greatest tool for discernment. The mind, the heart, and the gut, and all the superpowers it affords, so that you won't feel like you're going to make a wrong step from here, and that you're going to be able to navigate natural law really with great grace. And then the fifth item is the I am of the divine. And this is a deeply nourishing retreat. This was a very special set of many hours of powerful transmission from my friend Adria from the angelic realm, another support system of your sovereignty. And furthermore, a deeper opening from the esoteric and the mystical so that you can also be in receiving. This kind of wonderful retreat you can be playing in the background for the next year as you allow yourself to reprogram your subconscious to be in a receiving place of sovereignty, working with the divine will. This particular retreat is there to help you with that. And so I wanted to pull all the very best of my efforts together, but more so the collaborations, and with this idea of step by step getting you out of the matrix now, and with the exact tools you need to actually have some fun while all of this incredible change is happening. So that was the heart of this package.
Love what you've created. And again, the best of the best, plus the day-long workshop with a break in between to participate in, again, the preparation and attunement into the equinox energies and what that may be bringing in. And there's a lot of conversation about what that may look like. But the most important thing is getting in vibrational accord with ourselves into the truth. And from there, we can be in relationship with what comes. We can purify our temple to be met with what's possible. And we don't have to get into preparing for the worst. Because again, that's a boundary thing. It's not a discernment thing. It's like we know that we're prepared to navigate and we trust that. And again, there's so much assistance and so much support. And those like Elizabeth who can guide us so beautifully. So again, y'all take advantage of this special offer. The link is in the chat box. It's $197. There's a 2-payment option on it. It's valued at over $800. And again, the preparation, the being in resonance with what's available to you, the truth of your remembering, expressing itself through others in community who are experiencing these divine opportunities as well. It's, again, it's potent, very potent. So again, take advantage of it. The link's in the chat box. It's highlighted there in blue. You can go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/marketplace and find the special offer there as well. And Elizabeth, with that, I'd love to open up to some Q&A. Some of y'all have your hand raised. I'll start promoting you to host. We have user 167. If you'll unmute yourself and let us know your name and your question for Elizabeth, that'd be wonderful. If anyone wants to ask a question, you can raise your hand. It's at the bottom of the screen. And you can type your question into the chat box as well. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
Good.
I have been, I'm trying to turn off my phone. There we go. This is my 1-year anniversary of that, catastrophic event that we've spoken of. And I finally learned what it was about, and it was about patience and grace. And I really am a different person than I was a year ago. I haven't talked to you in so long. I have wanted to move into a state where I am in closer communication with angels and those on the other side. So much of what people are asking me these days, it would be amazing and marvelous if I could bring in light, healing, joy, and reassurance to people in these times. My kids live in Israel. They've put up 40,000 meals.
What's your questions?
And here's my question. Having gone through all of this and being very still for a long time, I've begun to feel really off balance. I did finally buy another bike. I can't get on it or off it without falling over. I'm dizzy, I'm clumsy, I drop things,
So again, your
and
question.
I can't remember things. Can you read what's going on with me? Am I part of this big transition that's going on? And I'll just take a deep breath and keep, having things to hold on to when I fall over.
Sarah, I think as we're getting closer to the 0 point, I see that just literally, I see as we're spinning tighter, right? Like a whirlpool. And you're right there in that spin, that tight spin. And it's always very, very uncomfortable right before it gets the most still, right? And you're like, how could it get more still? It will, and it can, because that's where the dizzying's coming from. Hang on, hang on, and nourish yourself. Nourishment right now so that the brain can be more balanced, right? And making sure that your brain is nourished, specifically the brain. Because this right here is where all this new stuff that's causing the tight whirlpool spin, all this galactic light, what's the first thing it hits? It hits our brains. And so in a very literal way, you're right here, and it's so close to this moment of finally feeling like you're grounded. And it's that 1 year anniversary, so powerful. You're right there at that edge. Hang on to that recognition that you're right there before a very deep grounding that's going to happen.
And is there any advice you can give me or anyone else who's experiencing this on specifically how to nourish our brains? I do a lot, but there may be something you could share.
Absolutely. First and foremost, the brain wants animal proteins and animal fats. And that might be hard for folks if you're in a vegan diet, but butters, tallow, animal fat, bone broth, these are the things the brain wants most from an anthropologist's perspective. That's the first thing that the brain
Yeah, I'm
wants.
taking all this stuff you recommended from this line.
Yeah, exactly. So bringing in, and that's going to be so powerful. Bone broth, honestly, is one of the best things in the world right now for your brain.
Okay, for me and a lot of people.
Yes.
Okay,
All right, Sarah, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you.
thank you.
Have a great
Bye,
evening.
dear.
Okay, let's continue here. Let's go to user 1383. Welcome to the call.
Thank you very much, John. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
Beth.
And
Hi, Beth.
Elizabeth, hi. It's funny because I met you, Elizabeth, through John many, many years ago. And when we had a session, you had talked about this metal plate that had been above my head and that we cleared, and that had to do with my lineage and ancestry. Well, it seems like it's come again.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you lift your microphone or just
it's funny. I went to the computer. The Zoom said go to computer audio from your show, which I've never done before. So can you hear me, John?
It's sounding very and I'm echoing back.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Why don't I get off, come back on in a new way, and see if I can do it a different way.
That sounds
You go
perfect.
on.
That sounds perfect. All right. All right, let's go to user 1569. Welcome to the call.
Hi, John, and hi, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for having me. And I'd love to ask, because for years and years and years, I've been told that I hold a big light on the planet. But I worked and worked and worked to get clarity about that. And I wondered if Elizabeth had anything to say about that.
Sure. I think right now people's essences are shining through so brightly because they need to be seen. It can be kind of tricky to name someone's essence, right? Honestly, though, I would immediately relate yours to the Earth's, very similar to the Earth's essence. And her light is this beautiful indigo present. It's a very deep awareness of, and it's a very powerful, what we would call a foundational frequency. And so our essence is very beautiful, but it has action in the world, right? So my essence is kind of like a flashlight. And so my action is to see and to reveal. Now, your essence is more foundational. It's like the earth. We walk around on the earth and we're not always thinking about her, but she's always there. And that is very important. That's the action of your essence. It's a foundational frequency. So I want you to consider that all the time, because it's good to know your own light and what it's at least relatable to. But what's it going to do in the universe? And that's how you're going to begin to do soul to soul connection more. So foundational frequency is going to elevate the whole room, but it's not necessarily going to be obvious like a dominant frequency might. So, a loud person at a restaurant can be a dominant frequency, but you are a foundational frequency. So I want you to take that really seriously, because it's good to know your light, that's true. But to know how you're going to actually be destined to act in the universe is even perhaps just as important. So
that is my question. Yes. And I've traveled around the world taking light with me, as people have told me I do. So thank you very much, Elizabeth. And I hope to bring an abundance doing that.
Exactly. And by being generous with it, right? So
yes.
You offer that and it becomes very abundant. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Good.
That's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for coming on. Yeah. Okay, Beth, let's go back to you. Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah. I don't think it's working. My computer, something's going on.
You're working, hon.
Okay, because you're garbled now. My question is the healing my trauma in my Jewish ancestry has come up again, and things for me to remember. And I want to clear that trauma so I can move on to the new, because I know I have some trauma I want to clear. And so anything Elizabeth might say about that, and I'll keep my talking to a minimum.
Sure. So it's efficient. If you want to go ahead and there's a reverb. You can hear my answer.
I muted Beth, yeah.
Great. So to be most efficient now, you're going to want to go into the memory with only one goal in mind. And that is to nail down the exact frequency, the exact emotional frequency that is revealing, right? And no, do not get caught in the story details. Don't. But go in with that framework. Even imagine putting a lens up energetically. Lenses can be strategically useful, right? I know we're always trying to get rid of lenses, but you can use them to your advantage. Go in and you say, all right, I only want to see what precise energetic frequency this is that I need to shift. And then once you can nail it down, okay, this is a very specific quality of grief. Okay. And then you go and you figure out exactly what that quality is. Get your thesaurus out if you've got to, and find that quality. It's going to be a unique quality, because now you're getting into really subtle differences in the traumas. It's not just these big, grand, obvious ones now, but these are still immense, because you're dealing with a huge frequency in the DNA. So you're saying all these 100,000 subtle grief, trash bags of trauma in my genetic lineage. I perceive you, I value you. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And I'm ready to offer this as a gift to the source field. You can use your trauma as a generous gift and activate abundance that way, people. Amazing miracle. So you can offer your trauma as a gift to source God. And as that releases, you're asking source, whatever the other side of this polarity is, because the beautiful library of consciousness is actually organized through polarity. If there's a subtle kind of grief, then there's going to be a subtle kind of joy that's going to come in, and you're going to be paying very close attention for it, because it's going to show up in the outer field, coming in to fill in the gap, Beth. And it's going to come in from the outer field. So you need to pay attention very carefully for what it needs to come in. And it might come in that day or next week, but you're paying attention to what's coming in to fill in the energetic. And so this is how you're going to make this more efficient. But now at this point, It's not going to be just all anger or whatever. It's going to be a subtle form of anger. It's going to be more nuanced now, because we're getting to the more difficult, less obvious stuff, right? In all of our trauma. It's going to be subtle stuff now. That's how this works at the end of a big experiment. Now it's more detailed stuff, the more nuanced stuff. So you're right on track. That's how you'll be done with this more efficiently.
Thank you so much. Elizabeth, I so appreciate you speaking about that. I personally have been noticing that within my personal experience and also people that I've been working with. And it is going into the refinement. It's a refinement process rather than thinking of it as a re-traumatizing.
Yes.
Or this war that isn't ending. It's refinement. And when we can have gratitude for that refinement, when we understand that the crystalline diamond is being polished, there's an energy of celebration rather than an energy of, oh no, we're going back there again. There's an energy of knowing that you're doing the refinements and you're being assisted with that refinements also by very skilled artisans who are bringing out the most brilliance that's emanating through that note in that symphony that is you. And so to welcome it, like Rumi says, welcome it all, let them all in through the door. Let them dilapidate your house, knowing that they're all gifts from beyond. And of course, I'm butchering that poem, but you understand the essence of it. When we can feel it with that excitement of what we're capable of bringing through to the other side of it, it's, my personal experience, I can feel my direct work with divinity. I can feel the energy that's running through me because of me. And I like to hang out there a lot more. It's beautiful. So let's welcome it. It's absolutely amazing. Good work, Beth. Thank you for showing up and sharing that. And Elizabeth, you're just so masterful at seeing and illuminating and amplifying for our natural order. So amazing. Y'all, the special offer, again, the link's in the chat box. $197, 2 payment options, $800 value. The live course, but this energy, I felt it with Elizabeth when we first came on. We paused for 2 seconds and I felt this generation of energy. It's like, whoa, thank you for meeting me there and amplifying it. And that just happened in the silence. It's happening through the workshops of all of y'all gathering together. Amazing. The link's in the chat box, the buttons, and underneath the video. You can go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/marketplace. Lots of places to find it. I want to make sure that you don't miss it. Take advantage of it. Elizabeth, with that, can I take another live caller? Or did you have something that you want to grab? Okay, let's go to user 1632. I wish I had y'all's names up here. We'll try to get that fixed soon. Can you find your unmute button on your computer?
Yes, that was a good idea. Thank you. Hi, I'm Christina, and thank you for allowing me
Welcome,
to be here with you.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, Elizabeth. I have wanted to meet you for so long, and I'm very selective who I listen to, my listening, and I knew to be on this call today, and I thank you. With your last sharing, I want you to know it was like an alchemical moment here. I was like pouring sweat.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's really quite extraordinary, and I thank you. And my question to you, I actually have 2. The first one has to do on receiving and through the different centers in the body, and then the amplification of that out from the core into all of the fields, worlds without end, and the allowance of that. the allowance of that. So my question is, if you are seeing any blocks or anything that we can work with that hopefully will also assist other people, how to have, because I really experience this as golden light that comes in like this and then back down again, and then out into the core of Gaia, and then back up and through the center, kind of behind the navel, back up again. And then also going this way, I'm very aware of the infinity and the equanimity of how things are functioning. So if you could speak on that, I'd appreciate it.
It's not so much a block. It's opening your awareness through the back of your spine and the back of your head and the back of your lower back now. There's a wonkiness to it because all the energy's all coming through the front and the sides. But if you allow it to be actually equally moving through the back of your head, the back of your heart, and the back of your lower back out to the edge, then you're going to feel like a lot more balanced and better. It'll flow better. That's first. And then you're a conduit, but there's two types of conduits. Some conduits allow all energies to move through. So they're there to hold all the doors open at whatever cost. And that's one type. But then the second type, which you are, is to allow a very specific kind of energy through. And it's going to be unique. And it's very, very special and very powerful. And that gold light is a very nourishing light. Very, very nourishing. And so it's not so much, again, a block. It's very important for you to allow yourself to focus and fall fully into, and I mean it, fall backwards into it. Fall fully into that light. Let it fully 100% take over. It's not necessarily going to feel like it's moving as much as it is just that it is, that it exists in all corners of the universe. So that's actually the first and 12th dimension are the same doorway perceived from a different side. And so I'm encouraging you to fall back into the 12th dimension, which is going to be the big eye, that energetic, that gold light, that it's not necessarily moving through you anymore at that point. It is you, it is all things, it is all one field. And so then you're allowing the awareness to pool out in that consistency, and it's consistent, it's constant. So it's not necessarily going to feel like it's going to move anymore after a while as you acclimate to becoming that field, the big eye. So I think that's actually the next step. And it's not a block. It's just a rearrangement of how the energy is moving, and then a falling back into the I, the big I am. That is where we're heading all along anyway.
Recently, I've been experiencing a lot of pain, L4, L5, the lumbar spine, and it's shown up on radiographics and that. And so I was wondering if that may be an impediment with that also, based on what you just said.
Well, that's actually from a hook, and this is good for all of us actually, because that's what I call the spiritual bungee cord that's happened to your generation in particular, and for you to really recapitulate the feeling of being held back all this time, and how frustrating it has been, even though you did diligently carve that path out. But one of the best fixes that I can give you ultimately first is to bring your awareness to the fact that that bungee cord was real and that you were held back, because if you'd allowed yourself, if society had allowed you to go 200 miles an hour, you would have probably either been banished or destroyed yourself. So being held back actually was part of the necessary cycles of especially the divine feminine awakening that all of you carved out. But furthermore, that if you hadn't been so diligent and allowed yourself to be held back, but still carved that path, if you hadn't have done that, then I wouldn't be here. So I thank you. And that gratitude helps to heal that too. But you're not held back anymore. None of us are. It's a deep healing that needs to happen there.
Blessings
Thank
to
you. You sang that just really. Thank you. God bless you.
You too, my dear.
Blessings. Ah, so beautiful. Right, y'all? Amazing. How many of y'all felt that as well as that pertains to you? Connie, thank you for being the ambassador for that for all of us. Truly, so grateful. Elizabeth, that's as we're going in this version of the ride. The equinox brings a palatable new awarenesses, new relationships with how we define ourselves to ourselves and how we define others accordingly. Before we end today's call, do you have any particular recommendations for us for the next couple of months as we transition and go through these experiences?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want everyone to really focus in from here on out, especially this evening and tomorrow, on deepening into your meditation into the I am presence. If you can really keep trying to put your full awareness into that I am, then that is going to initiate what we're talking about naturally. And so you're wanting to be in part of this natural law where there's so much more fluidity, where it's a lot easier, where you're actually getting the divine right partnership, the divine right work, the divine right pay, the divine right words, images, hopes that will come through you. Hope is part of grace. And so all of that divinity, it does have to get initiated by that powerful I am soul presence that you are. And in that initiation, it's fuel for huge shifting of the great machine that is the consciousness you're aware of. So I want you very carefully and very diligently to spend time each day in that state of self-care where you're simply attending to the I am. And it's not you as female or male. It is not you as light or dark. It is not you as an anthropologist or a psychic or a mom or a pet owner or whatever. It's none of that. It's none of that. That's the cool stained glass window you picked. That's part of this being that you've been hanging out with called your body, the symbiotic being that is this embodiment. And my friends, if you're willing to sit in the I am, you're going to discover something about your cool body, that it is actually madly in love with you. Madly in love with you. All the cells, all the symbiotic cells in your whole body, they're madly in love with you every minute, choosing to be you in the shape of you. And as you become more and more the I am, your body celebrates, it heals, it changes, it heals. And your pain, the discovery of your consciousness, the discovery of all the amazing things that you are here to experience in your novel, special experience of the symphony, that's going to unfold as well into a great miracle where you're entirely present, where your mind is still, where you are not ruled by the subconscious imprints or energetics or feelings or memories any longer, but rather you utilize them to help you discern, and where you're willing to keep pushing into new places of consciousness that you didn't have experience with before, even as a soul. That's the cool part. That's where the edge is. Because we're in a completely different place in space, and the galaxy is too. And that's that feeling of being pulled in and out of these eddies. That's right. Think of the galaxy as a cool inner tube right now. It's exactly kind of what it's shaped like anyway. And we're really in a very different place in the white water of consciousness that is the universe. So it's not just us going through this. All of our star families are too. And just wait till after June when you can actually tap into it, and they're all going to be just as wide-eyed and amazed and hopeful as we are, because we are actually heading into something that none of us could ever have ever imagined. So I think that that's my greatest advice right now, is to focus in on the I am so that it can actually do the work for you and be able to enjoy what's happening from here. This year is very special, and we'll see the unfolding of truth. That's what it's all about.
So beautiful. Thank you for that share, Elizabeth. Just so much amplification and expansion in what you're talking about. And two words that really struck me, that struck a chord so loud for me, as you're talking about I am. You said we are. I am, we are, y'all. I am, we are. I am, we are. And feel that. And as we end tonight's call, I want to gift, if I can have 5 more seconds of your time. First of all,
Please.
thank all of y'all for being here. But I want to gift to y'all that generation of energy that I felt with Elizabeth before we started the call. So I'll say goodbye to you now. And if y'all would like to join, just take a deep breath in and relax and allow the mind to empty, and feel the pulse that is available here abundantly, freely, generously, of the love that Elizabeth and I are sharing with you. And we join in that we are, I am. And with that, I'll be quiet for a few seconds. I'll allow you to generate from there. And I'll say goodbye now as I hang up here shortly. Namaste, everybody. Namaste, Elizabeth. Wonderful. Bye, everybody.